I probably don't need to ramble too much more about that. All right, so let's go to the first question. So this comes to us from Richard Welch, asking about what you would do with the outside linebackers walked up in a 4-4, and also wondering about the if-then play calling process. So if they're walking both outside linebackers up, that's going to turn this into almost like a 6-2. Now, depending on if they're right over the line, they could be trying to blood stunt. So if both of these players are coming in, that's the first thing I would do against that's probably mid triple. Are they doing it? Are they calling strength to a specific side? Is something I would try to check. Doesn't matter whether your formation is into the boundary or the field. That would be another thing to check. And we'll touch on this on your second part of your question. The first thing I would probably do is start playing with formations. So if you go over or you go trips and you split, right, maybe this guy comes way over here. They have to do something to account for this guy. So some teams will bring the corner over. If they do that, then you've got a whole lot of space to run backside. Otherwise, they might have to walk this guy out. So that would be one way to try to influence him. If they're not doing that and you're still struggling to get to the field, and you'll see Navy does this occasionally, bring this guy in, right? You could almost line him up like a tight end here, but depending on where that outside backer's playing, maybe you want him just right outside here and have him just crack this outside backer who's walked up. Because then that obviously negates what he's there for. Another thing to do, let's pretend, we'll say we have our regular base formation. So that was over. Trips is something you can also throw at this. Split out that other backside A-back, and they have to figure out how they're going to defend this again, right? So I doubt most teams are going to bring this outside backer over to this side unless they truly play it like a 4-2-5, but I don't see a lot of high school teams doing that. They might bring the corner. Well, no, they can't bring the corner over because he's still there. So their only option is to either cheat this free safety over, and whether he's manned up with that outside receiver, he could be in a few different areas here. If I see this, I am running to the short side all day, right? So if that free safety is there, I'm probably looking here. This is triple left all day, right? So we can go there. We can come down, right? We can motion him. You've got that, right? There's your two guys, and assuming your wide receiver can block one-on-one on the corner, there's no one else there to make the tackle. If that's not the case, let's see, good, my Control-Z is going to get rid of all that ugly hand drawing. The other thing they are going to have to do here is walk him out. If they walk him out, if they're still trying to get him to play the edge, right? If he's setting the edge and he's trying to force, there's no one else out here. I'd be running bubbles to this guy, right? Just have your X block the corner, have run the bubble here. There's also a whole lot of space right here that you can play around in. Yeah, the world is your oyster at that point. Trying to think. Nothing else is really coming to mind as far as formations. Those are the two biggest ones, but always play with your splits of your X's and either put them on the same side or run trips. As far as actual plays, if you try to keep your game inside, right? So if they're out leveraging you to the outside, try to keep your running game between the tackles. I would run midline, right, wherever you have a bubble, a B-gap bubble here, or excuse me, A-gap bubble. I'd want to run midline to this side. I'd want to run triple to this side. Zone dive, right, depending on where those guys are outside. If they're truly contained and they're staying outside, running a zone dive or a QB follow right up that seam is going to basically nullify those guys, and you can keep hitting them inside until they adjust. Either bring those guys back, but essentially you just want to find where they're weak and keep pushing that until they're forced to adjust, and then be ready with the next adjustment. We'll talk about that as part of your second question. Another easy thing to do, you can run like a rocket crack or a mid-triple crack, right? So let's pretend, right, he's back over here. We'll cheat this guy in. You might call this, we'll call it trim, is what we call it at our school. Depending on where he is, right, you might line him up right at like a 3 feet, like a tight end. You could line him up at 3 yards here. And actually this becomes more of a switch. But what you can do, right, is then your X blocks there, your A back blocks there. And then especially if you switch these up so that linebacker doesn't know where the block is coming from, right? Sometimes he might be blocked out by the tackle. Sometimes he might be blocked by the A-back. Sometimes he might get blocked by this guy. Sometimes he might not get blocked at all. The more that guy has to think, because they're putting him in not a great position, the better off you'll be. Now, as part of